And good morning. We're coming to you live from Pro Business Channel here in Buckhead, and we're overlooking the fabulous view this morning, the grateful weather we're having today, and we've got some fabulous guests. I'm Michael Moore. We're bringing to you some interesting things about how you build your business, how you train your business, how you fund your business. We just really don't know what all we'll learn today from these guests. We've also got some in-studio guests today who are not going to heckle us. They're not going to smile at us. They're just going to be great extra people in the studio, so we're glad to be with you. We've got Rich Casanova here, who's on the board today, and we're going to have a lot of fun as we meet Stephanie Johnson and we meet Karen Rands, and they're going to talk to us about not only the training things and the neat things about Atlanta that we're all experiencing, but Karen's going to show us what a compassionate capitalist really looks like.
Always love that title. That's a great title.
It is.
And again, this show being brought to you by the Buckhead Business Association. If you're not familiar with the group, 65-year history here in Buckhead, and they support the business community within and outside of Buckhead, but you can check out information about their events. We'll talk about a little bit later during the show, and that's at buckheadbusiness.org.
That's right. If you want to grab your website while you're listening to us, buckheadbusiness.org. They meet every Thursday morning, so you can't miss it. We'll tell you some other fun things. So, Stephanie, you've joined us this morning in studio. I understand you've been in Atlanta for quite a while. You're not a native. Almost no one here is a native, so congratulations and welcome to the club. So, but you moved here, you said earlier, that just as we were doing our prep to travel out of Atlanta because it's so easy to get out and back from. So tell us why you do what you do and what brought you here.
So I always had a corporate job, and I was my education and background is in accounting. And a person a long time ago approached me about, you're such a people person, why are you behind a desk? We would love for you to be able to interview some people and be able to train people. I think you'd just be great at it. So would you be interested in doing something like that? So me being the adventurous person I am, an adventurous accountant. I don't know.
An adventurous accountant. Rich, does that go together? Look that up in the dictionary while we're thinking here.
First time we ever heard it on the show. That's another first. Yeah.
Adventurous accountant, all right.
I decided to give it a try, and I taught my first class, and I knew that that's what I was supposed to be doing. So we'll fast forward about 2 years, and I moved here to teach all different kind of things, and I opened my own company, and then here we are 12 years later, and have my own training company.
When you say teach all kinds of things, what's the range of things? Not basket weaving and fly casting, but what do you got?
I do it though.
Oh,
we have six main areas of our company. We do leadership training, we do soft skill training, we do hard skill training, where that will be under the Microsoft's front end and the back end. We actually do lunch and learns, and then we do some corporate consulting as well. So sometimes people don't necessarily want to just learn it; they just want me to do it for them, and I'll do that.
Well, let's keep notes. I want to talk about lunch and learns a little later on, but talk to me a little bit about that corporate training, that leadership training. You know, there's a lot of trends going on now. So, which one are you teaching, preaching, and helping people with?
Personal development is the core of what we do on the leadership side. So we want you to develop yourself before you can go out and try to develop others. So that has been a staple batch of courses that have been covered by Cornerstone for quite a while. So we teach at a lot of the organizations. If I mention the company names, you would know them.
Well, I'm sure you've got the list of the corporate 550 or 5,000, whichever would be appropriate. We all need good. Talk to me about the age, the experience of ages have in the training you administer. Where do you see most of the requests coming in for leadership training these days?
Mostly in the 30 to 40-year-old range for the leadership training. A lot of them have been excellent on their job, and then all of a sudden they were just, bonked on the head one day, and now you're a leader. So they're trying to find out the skills that it takes in order to to empower others. So if they're not standing right there and don't have the carrot in front of them, how to be able to get them to perform at their best. Nowadays, we're being asked to produce more with less.
Right.
So they want to be able to take a big advantage of the resources that they already have.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that soft skills, too, for a minute. Just we know that our older leaders probably have a different set of soft skills than they need today to work with the younger leaders as well as the younger workers. So talk a little bit about millennials, talk a little bit about soft skills and what you're seeing in the development and what you're administering to people.
I hear that a lot in the requests in the beginning when they're asking for it, but when we get in the class itself, most of the time they're requesting the same things. It's the same concepts that stay true today that they were 20 years ago. most people have a perception that they can't communicate well with the millennials, but in fact, you use the same skill set that you would use on people who are the same age.
So that's role playing with a baseball bat. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. Or a soft pillow. Which do you prefer using?
We just use both, and then we see which one works.
You know, we see that now so often that the skills that we all have, they're not necessarily the wrong ones for the occasion, but they do have to be administered a little bit different. So
that's been our experience.
The toolkit. I understand also you're an author.
Yes.
You want to tell us a little bit about your latest book, or your one that's coming out next?
Yes. So my latest book is Living Without Mask. And that book is about how many people feel that they should act a certain way. So once they're around their peers, they realize that they should put on this mask in order to perform a certain way with people. And then under pressure, the mask slips. And they become someone that no one knows who this is. So it's about being comfortable with who you are and taking in the good with some things that are weaknesses, and having people accept all of you, but mainly you accepting all of you.
So really, you just need to teach them how to tie a better knot.
That's exactly right. I agree.
My wife says I can be Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and 3 other people from afternoons.
That's it. You got to take it. I mean, we are who we are.
We are who we are. But, being able to be adaptive is certainly a key.
Yes.
So how long has that book been out?
That book has been out a little less than 2 years.
Great. And you're still in your speaking tour, and I bet you're still signing your autographs in that one.
I do. I signed my autographs with that one. I was recently down in Arkansas in the month of September speaking at one of their public health, and I was speaking on personal development, and we were talking about how you can live without masks.
So did you do lunch and learns with that book, around the book? Is that one of your subjects?
I do lunch and learns around that, and I also will do lunch and learns around, hey, how do you get quicker, faster, easier in Excel as well?
Wait a minute, quicker, faster, easier. You sound like a salesperson telling that story. So we'll have to talk to you about some opportunities. I know that Rich is always looking for ways to sell. How? Quicker, better, faster?
Sounds good to me, yeah. just sell, yeah. I'll even take it slow, whatever, yeah, but fast is always better, yeah.
Slow feels better, doesn't it? Just as long as the check's large.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, we look for the opportunity. Circling back before we forget, how do we get in touch with you quickly to plan that lunch and learn?
So our office number is 678-909-3525, and I'll repeat that again, 678-909-3525.
And your best website, or the website you'd prefer us to go look at first?
Yes, cornerstonetraining.net.
That's pretty simple. And do you have a different website for each of your books?
No, they're all links that they can get to the different.
And then go right on Amazon. And what's that title again?
Living Without Mask.
Living Without Mask. Very, very good. Well, I think we've learned a lot of things. So let's see, you've trained how many people in your life? Thousands.
Yes, thousands of people. I train thousands of people every year. So I've been at it 12 years, so we'll have to do the math.
That's about 144,000 people, plus or minus. Plus or minus. Well, I know you'll get quite a few more done, and I know that as we all mature and we all look for better ways to do things, you're going to be having a lot of opportunities to train more people in a lot of different ways, I'm sure.
I look forward to it.
Good. Well, let's now be talk about the training. Boy, I tell you, I'm going to move on to someone who's been training people in a different regard for quite a while. Karen Rands has been very instrumental in the venture capital and the venture ecosystem here for helping investors as well as needers of funds to get the right level of questioning, the right level of education, the right level of stuff. So, Karen, what kind of things are you going to share with us today?
Okay, thank you, Michael. It's great being here. One of the things that seems to come up all the time when I'm out networking or I'm talking to people is, as somebody that's been working with entrepreneurs and angel investors for 15 years, I take for granted that everybody knows what I know. And so when I'll say something about crowdfunding or about the new crowd finance, and it's
their eyes glaze over.
Exactly. And I'm stunned that here we are, 4 years since the Jobs Act passed, and so many of the different titles and the different programs for raising capital were released, how much misinformation is still out there. So one of the things I thought would be good use on this show here was to maybe clarify some of that and kind of look to a spot check on how the Jobs Act, the potential of it, what it was intended for, and is it that are actually accomplishing those things.
Well, would you mind giving us a little vocabulary to start out with so that people understand how the Jobs Act and how crowdfunding and how Georgia has embraced that? Let's start with education.
Okay. So the Jobs Act, of course, stands for Jumpstart Our Business Startups, and it was an initiative across both parties back as part of an economic endeavor to grow jobs, and that's why it's called the Jobs Act. And the intention of it was to break down some of the barriers. Actually, the main barrier that most entrepreneurs have in getting access to capital is how do you identify, reach out, and communicate with investors. And so there was this limit that had been a real barrier for a long time in what they call general solicitation. That means emailing, tweeting, whatever it is, social media, press releases, telling people that you're raising capital. You couldn't even have an interview and talk about it technically. And so
what we're doing here may be illegal.
No, not anymore.
Not anymore. Okay, good.
And so the Jobs Act had a couple of different categories, and I won't get into a lot of details so your eyes don't glaze over and our listeners don't change the channel. But there's really three. So one of the reasons why it was the catalyst for it to happen was at the time there was all this stuff going on with crowdfunding, and you've heard of Kickstarter or FundMe or Indiegogo. And so back then, and up until May of this of 2016, there was the only kind of crowdfunding you could do was what they call rewards based, or in effect, or donations. So GoFundMe is kind of known for the donation. Rewards based means you're buying something in advance and you're getting some kind of a package of goodies in exchange for your money, but you weren't getting shares in the company. And so Georgia, in fact, was ahead of the game, because before the Jobs Act was even passed and ratified, Georgia had created an interstate commerce. It meant that Georgia companies could raise money from Georgia investors, and we kind of led the charge. At that time, there was only 2 states. Now, pretty much all the states have some form of that now. So there's really 4 ways that companies can raise capital from investors without having to be burdened by how they discuss their offering. And so in their state, they can, if they're incorporated in the state, they can raise capital from within their state. They can do a modified version of a regular Reg D, which has been around forever and a day, and that's called 506C, and that's just for accredited investors. And if you don't know what that means people that make $200,000 a year individually, or $350,000 as a household, with $1 million in net worth or $5 million in accumulated assets.
That's 1 or 2 of my friends, but not a whole bunch.
Yeah, exactly. And so, as in fact, what's interesting is, well, now I want to jump ahead. So there's 3, and then the other one is on a new program that's called Reg A+. Well, the Reg A has been around forever. It's mostly used by banks to raise capital and hedge funds and things like that, and then they modified it, and it's what they are calling kind of like a mini IPO, because when you get a certain number of investors, you can raise up to $50 million in a year under Reg A+, and it's really geared towards companies that are, they can be unaccredited investors as part of that as well, and it's geared toward companies that have a large consumer base that they can basically, it's called the Great Democratization, because investors across the board have an opportunity to invest in private companies before they go big, and as well as they can reach out to, they can raise money from just about anybody. And then the last one is, of course, is the actual crowdfunding, and it is intended to be less than $1 million in a year. It's really for small. It's really perfect for local companies raising capital. And the restrictions on that and the Reg A Plus is based off of income, not so much whether you're accredited or not. It's based off of income on how much somebody can invest. So the good news is that there's all kinds of opportunities for companies to reach out to investors. The bad news is that you still have to be qualified to, you know what I mean? Just because you can build it doesn't mean they come, right? And so that's a lot of entrepreneurs think it's going to be easier. It's really not that much easier, because it's just like if you're selling on the internet. It's one thing like when you get people to come into your store and buy, and you know they're there because they came there to buy. When they're on the internet, they're bouncing around, and just because they hit you on your website doesn't mean that they're going to convert to a buyer. So your volume, I mean, it's just a whole different strategy that you have to approach it, and it's the opportunity is greater, but the challenges are it didn't get easier.
Yeah.
Well, let's look at some of those things. I'm sure you've seen a lot of experiences over the last 4 years as you've watched people mature. Let's kind of put it back in perspective. Today, we can still make mistakes. As you said, people can do a great-looking picture in it. No one buys the picture. But talk about how some of these projects you may have worked with or be very familiar with have failed and how some of those have succeeded. Give us some of those good stories that you have out there.
Are you talking about specifically to them raising capital or their long-term success as a company?
Well, let's start with the raising capital, because today, more than ever, we still have tremendous amounts of companies starting, whether you're a veteran or a new college graduate, whether you're a mom who suddenly decided you needed to support your family differently, or a fellow or lady who just lost their job that they'd had for 15 years in the corporate world, and they suddenly need to find a way to make a honest living.
Yeah.
And they may want to go to one of these new crowdfunding processes or raise money from friends and families. Some of the stories about how people have done a good job or not so good job that you've been aware of lately.
Okay, I think one of the biggest, things that an entrepreneur needs to do is put the hat of an investor on and think about investors, people that have money to invest, that have extra cash or extra capital. They have a lot of options. And so you have to, it's responsible of the entrepreneur to, one, make them feel and the other thing is that that money is working for them someplace. It's not in a cookie jar. It's not sitting underneath the mattress. So you, as an entrepreneur, are responsible for convincing them that your project is better than the other things that they may consider, and has the ability to make more money than whatever they're doing to make money with the money now. And so if you can answer those two questions, and the comfortable thing comes with how are you going to make money? Do you have a good plan? Do you have a team? Do you have all these things that are really, traditions of business process, business management? I mean, it's like it's the fundamentals. They haven't changed. But you have to, just because you need money and you need it now, doesn't mean that investor is going to stroke your check now or even stroke a check, because you may not have addressed the basic fundamental things that they need to know, that they're not just throwing their money away when they invest in you.
Well, so you're actually putting together a true sales proposal, and you're learning how to present it successfully and using the soft skills that you need to be relating to that investor, because they do have tremendous opportunities. Do you want chocolate or vanilla?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Or something in between. I think I'm a Neapolitan fellow.
Yeah.
My mom used to say Neapolitan.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs get caught up in their own, not say hype, but excitement. And I'm a huge fan of the Shark Tank, and what you just rattled off is exactly what on the other side of the table. And so I see these people walk in kind of blind, blinded or confused by when they're presenting to the sharks. They're so excited about their widget that they didn't really think about the exact points you brought up. Is the investor, are they going to be making more money at this? What do they have a proof of concept? Do they have some customer base? What do their sales look like? But they get caught up in, they'll build it and people will fund it.
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't have the neatest, coolest idea. Face it.
Right. I had so I do free consultation calls with entrepreneurs that just want to kind of figure out how, am I doing it? What kind of money's available? Whatever. Just bounce the ideas off of me. And so I had a call yesterday afternoon, and it turns out this guy was really at a concept stage, and he was trying to get just $10,000 to develop an app. Okay. And I kind of told him, I said, okay, now I know you're coming to me because you don't know any friends or family that have $10,000, otherwise you wouldn't be talking to me, right? And I said, but the problem is that at your stage, nobody that you don't already know is going to give you money, even if it's only $10,000, right. And because they want a minimum viable product or a proof of concept of it. So here's my suggestion. I have this thing that I call a DIY. It's a 1-10-100. So you spend 1 year, 10 hours a week, and budget $100 a month, and go out and learn. If you don't have any money as an entrepreneur, you go out and learn. And there's lots of programs. I send them to the co-founders thing, so he could go and start maybe meeting people that might be a part of his team. And I send him to a couple of other types of events on the Eventbrite. You go out and you network. You go to an SBA event. You spend either researching or involved in the entrepreneur community, and you start to build your team. You get your principles. You budget. Your $100 might be $10 to attend this event, go to lunch with this person, whatever, kinds of things. Attend this webinar, something that they need to develop their business skills, and through that process, and almost every major city has various incubators and various things that will help startups. you can get to that point when you don't have money to hire people to help you, and you're actually a better entrepreneur if you go through that learning process yourself. Just because you have this really great idea that you're passionate about, you really have to understand whether it's going to be something that other people will get passionate about.
Well, I like your idea of putting on the hat of the investor, because you teach them to do that. You also teach them to learn what other people are already learning around them as they go out and network. So the 110-100, that sounds like a rule we ought to put into place in the opportunity. So Karen, as you go through, you've been doing this, you said, for 15 years. You've seen a lot of changes. You've seen a lot of people have some successes. You've probably seen a fair amount of people just get frustrated and fold their tent and go away, right?
Yeah, you mentioned earlier about sales, and so I have viewed selling equity or raising capital very similar to the sales model that you have. And unfortunately, a lot of entrepreneurs will have no doubt about selling, and that, the whole 80-20 rule and having a funnel and, follow through until they say no, and you put them on a tickler list and you call them and stuff like that. But when it comes to raising capital, the thing that they do time and time again that ultimately creates their failure in raising capital and then getting the money they need to succeed is that they don't talk to enough investors. They have a feeling that they talk to 40 people at an event, they're done, right?
Right.
And really it's going to be more like 120 or 400 investors they might need to talk to if they're doing $1 million, let's say, and I have a whole formula on that. But then they also don't follow through. They won't even, like at a pitch events, they won't even follow through with the people that have made it. 10 people say that they're interested. They'll call the first 3. They start doing an exchange with the first 3, and they never get to the other 7. And then those 3, one of them, they deal, the other guy doesn't call them back. They think they're a no, and they never call them again. But if it was somebody that was, a qualified customer that was going to buy their thing, they would continue to call them until that person said no,
I think it's just like your 110-100. We all know the rule in sales. What gets measured gets improved. It works in sports. It works in reading your Bible. It works everywhere else in the world that I'm aware of, and all the places in between. So, Karen, thank you for re-enlightening us again about the venture marketplace today and the crowdfunding. Certainly, we probably have. Now, remember, I think my grandmother still has a mason jar under the bedside. so we don't need to ask our mothers, but we do need to ask our friends, right?
Yeah.
So I think that comes back to it. Test on your friends and obey the rules, I guess, would be 2 things I think I heard. So let's just visit for a minute. Rich, you going to give us that BBA pitch again this morning?
Absolutely. Real quick, Karen, how would folks get in touch with you?
Okay, so my main website, so I have 2 sites. I work with entrepreneurs and investors. So Cougarand.com, Kugarand, and there's a tab there for investors and a tab for entrepreneurs. And they can follow me on Twitter. It's Karen_Rands, and I've got a new Instagram account that's Compassionate Capitalist, because that's my passion.
Yeah.
Right, so
Can we Google that and find you?
you can.
All right.
You can. And
She's right here in the studio. You can find it right
yeah,
here.
CompassionateCapitalist.me is soon to be launched. It routes to Cougarand.com, but
Okay.
it'll have its own site soon enough, and that's all about bringing net new smart money into the market to make the Jobs Act work.
Awesome. Well, we could do a whole show, or at least I would like to have a whole show just on crowdfunding. I have a boatload of questions on that. We're thinking about launching our own crowdfunding in January campaign in January on a new subscription model premise. So we'll need to talk on air or off air about this. But let's kind of circle back around just a minute with our guest. But beforehand, again, remind our listeners listening to the Buckhead Business Show here in our Pro Business Channel studios in Buckhead with our $1 billion view.
$1 billion view,
If you haven't
right.
seen it, come on by or just follow the videos and the photos on site. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, and that makes this possible. That's the Buckhead Business Association. You can reach out to them at buckheadbusiness.org. And Michael, talk to us about some events at the BBA.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things that makes Karen mention you need to see more people and tell them your story. So we plan each month. We plan 3 monthly meetings on let's assume a 4-week month for a minute. The first and second week of the month, we have a Thursday morning meeting, which is phenomenal. It's at the City Club. We have a great program. We have good food. We have great fellowship. That works. And always, pretty much on the third Thursday of the month, we have an after-hours event, which is hosted by a local local business owner here in Buckhead, and we've been in some pretty nice places, starting at the Mandarin Hotel, on down to good places like steakhouses.
Right.
We won't mention any good steakhouse, but there's lots of good steakhouses.
Well, you know who you are, yeah.
You know you're in Buckhead when you've got many, many choices of steakhouses.
Yeah.
And we do some other things. We've launched some barbecue restaurants even, so we're not particular for this.
And they do signature luncheons throughout
That's
the year.
right.
And
We got our
awards.
annual lunch coming up this year, which has a showstopper, so go to the website, www.buckheadbusiness.org. And we also do a signature lunch, which is last year we had a phenomenal program on safety here in the city, which was just unbelievable as we awarded our first responders.
And the Taste of Buckhead, and then finally for the young bucks, those folks that are millennials you talked about that are looking for crowdfunding or have a widget, a new app they're developing. There's a whole
They
division.
typically do an after-hours event each month, and of course, our Young Bucks organization is for those people who are less than 35 years old, or almost 35 years old, or close. But we
don't check your ID at the door, but
we
yeah.
don't check ID at the door. We'll let you participate in either. And then lastly, we do some community service things. I think coming up pretty soon, we're going to be doing some working at the food bank. A few months ago, we cleaned up Peachtree Street, so there's a lot of opportunities. We also get involved with schools here when we have a chance, and have people willing to focus some of their time to help the next generation.
And I know their partner do work with the Buckhead Coalition, the CID, and so forth. So, all right. So, again, thank you to the Buckhead Business Association for helping make the show possible. Let's circle about each guest. Stephanie, if you would, what does a good day look like for your business? What's an accomplishment or something that just puts a little more pep in your step? Yeah.
Anytime that I'm in the classroom, then it's a great day. Getting a chance to get people to realize or understand concepts that they never knew before.
Right.
So whether it's on the hard skills or the soft skills side, is a good day for us. Anytime that we're talking to an organization that has a need and we're able to partner with them to fulfill their needs is a great day for us. We work a lot with the veterans, and so we have some veterans that actually need training but don't necessarily have the funds for it.
Right.
So we work with some nonprofit organizations to get the training that they need, and we partner with those organizations so that they can actually become very not just functional,
Right.
but successful
Yeah.
in society once they transition from military to civilian.
Which is not always an easy bridge to cross, right?
Absolutely, we have some series that we put together just specifically for that alone.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you for adding that service to our society here. It's very, very needed, especially for soft skills and other things.
And real quick, I don't know if we have time or if you mentioned this during your segment about grapes on the vine. Did we talk about that? Or
No, we missed it.
So give us a little insight into that.
Well, anything that's not on the vine when it's going to be something living is going to dry up. So we
Right.
want to talk about being grapes on the vine. How do we get connected and be a great? We've got to feed the roots.
Okay.
Right. So we believe in building things from the inside out in order that that what's evident to everyone is flourished or is actually given nutrients from the roots itself.
Yeah, because it can visualize that the health of that planet or that plant or that person is more than just the basic elements, right?
So many people will work from the outside in, and we find that that's very temporary.
Yeah.
Yes.
So don't polish your apple. Make sure your apple grows healthy. All right. You want to circle back, Karen?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You've been in this marketplace for quite a while in Atlanta. You've had a lot of successes. Where's the wisdom here as we wrap up today? For the person who's seeking to be a new entrepreneur, two or 10 sentences.
Okay, 2 or 10. So here's the thing that I always tell people that they need to do when they're first starting to think about a business, particularly if they're in a job and they're transitioning or something like that, is that they have to do a really basic business plan. There's some great resources available through the SBA and through various organizations like that can get stats and stuff like that. But it needs to be a basic business plan that answers 3 questions. What is their authentic customer who really needs to want to buy that, and kind of what do they think that they'll be willing to pay for it, right? So it's not just something that they need, but it's something that other people need. And 2, how long is it going to take them to personally make more money than what they make in their current job right now? Okay, and the 3, and are they passionate enough about it? Because if they have to be able to sell their spouse if they have a spouse or their significant other on the fact that they're going to go do this business because it's going to suck the money out of their household, it's going to suck the time out of their relationship with the family, and they have to be passionate enough about it and be fairly certain of the success of it because there's a true demand for it in order to take the risk. Otherwise,
right.
just stay where you are and enjoy life and continue to climb the corporate ladder. You know what I mean? That's because you're going to work twice as hard as you do in your corporate job or your day job
For pennies on the
for
dollar.
at least 18 months.
Yeah, right.
You know, for less money.
Stephanie's raising her hand over here.
Yeah, right.
The
And
whole
so that's
room agrees,
probably
so.
the first thing to do on it. And yeah.
Well, good words of wisdom today. So
We actually have a few extra minutes here, so on maybe between the two of y'all, is there some thoughts or questions? I see you kind of nodding your head, Stephanie, as far as in ventures that you've started. What have you ventured into crowdfunding or challenges with capital or finances or the subjects that Karen's been speaking of?
Well, absolutely. And so everything that Karen said, I was nodding my head the entire time because I can definitely relate. I did not go out and obtain loans in order to start my business. It was definitely, I went after my clients, and that's how I did it there. So
The lean startup model, as they call it.
Yeah, that's the new trend or whatever. There's actually a whole book on that, right? Yeah.
quickest
Yeah.
funding is more sales.
it's more sales.
But I do have a quick question for Karen. I'm trying not to get into a whole hour about crowdfunding. We definitely, I'm biting at the chops to do
Okay,
that.
don't do that.
I can come back.
Yeah, exactly. But I do want to. What are some resources or kind of pitfalls on? Because crowdfunding has this idea of like, oh, I'll just put up a website and everybody starts sending me money. But what are some pitfalls or some resources for people that want to launch a campaign? You know, some do's and don'ts, I guess, if you will.
Well, there's a great deal of information out there about doing good crowdfunding campaigns. There's an organization, I think it's called crowdfundinginsider.com or something like that. But if you Google, you know, make a good crowdfunding campaign,
Right.
you know, you'll find the tips and techniques. And the guy that wrote the 4-Hour Work Week,
Yeah, Tim Ferriss.
Okay, he did a very long and extensive article blog. So
Really?
look him up
Okay.
on all the steps to have an effective crowdfunding campaign, what you need to budget in time, your pre-planning, what you have to do in order to drive the kind of traffic to it that you need to drive to it. And keep in mind, the one that you can do equity crowdfunding on that everybody really thinks about, you're somewhat limited on what you can communicate out about that, unlike the rewards-based. You know,
Right.
they really kind of knock the knees out from under people to a certain degree on that. So it's not near as you know, as
It's not Wild Wild West.
as what it was. And, you know, and also keep in mind with investors that, you know, it's one thing when you sit down across the table or you're at an event and you meet somebody and you have the opportunity to look in their eyeballs and convince them. When you're doing something where it's all internet based, you have to have a higher level of standard of what you offer them in getting them to your site, converted into getting into a conversation with you, and your documents that you provide that make them comfortable with you as being an online entity.
Okay.
All right.
Another day at the
office, yeah.
board here. Boy, I tell you what, we have learned some interesting things this morning, and I've seen a lot of people agree here. I know the listeners out there have probably been shaking their heads up and down, and probably some of you even raise their hands because they're interested to talk to you ladies, so I'm looking forward to them connecting.
Sounds good to me. We'll see you next time on another episode of the Buckhead Business Show.